All right, so the restaurant that I did my project over is Room 38. Room 38 is an American style cuisine restaurant here in Columbia, Missouri. They sell craft cocktails, wine, beer. They also have burgers, flatbreads, small plates, and sharing plates. They have a kind of bougie, upscale environment on the inside. They like to play a little bit of louder music, and they have booths, indoor seating, outdoor seating, and a private room.
I did my project on Chris McDee's, which is a restaurant here in Columbia, Missouri, and it's a restaurant I've been going to my whole life. I'm born and raised in Columbia, so me and my family really have always loved going here. Particularly my uncle, who has now moved away from Columbia, but he used to be like a regular, always, sitting at their bar and stuff. So he was back in town, so we went to go visit, and it's a place with really great food and really good service, but they've had change in ownership since the last time we've been there. So like the service and stuff was a little weird and a little off, but the food was still as great as it always is.
The restaurant I did my project over was the 404 Kitchen. It is located in Nashville. It's actually two streets down from Broadway, so a very busy area. Surprisingly, it was easy to find. We had went there with very high expectations. It being a 4.6 star rated restaurant. It's got a very experienced couple of chefs that work and operate the restaurant. Its biggest attraction is the Gertie's Whiskey Bar. It's one of the most like pristine whiskey bars there, especially in the Nashville area. But yeah, very good food. They do steaks, trout. They have lots of special dishes that they ask a lot of money for. But food was overall pretty good. But we had some rough experiences there when we went. So, all right, there we go.
Okay, so the parking for room 38, they are located downtown, so there was no parking lot that they had. There was street parking around both sides of the place, and there was a parking garage across the street. The parking wasn't a huge problem, but I could see how it would be on busier days, like game days downtown. So a few strategies that I thought that they could implement to help that would be trying to locate and purchase the parking spots directly in front and next to the restaurant, and purchasing a couple of spots in the parking garage across the street that are just set for the customers.
So the parking situation at Chris McDee's can be somewhat chaotic because it's located in a strip mall with many other businesses, a grocery store, pet groomer, salons, etc. And so when all those businesses are busy and it's a busy Friday night, like the night I went, the parking lot can get kind of congested. So the strategy I would suggest would be to implement a valet service or to collaborate with the other businesses in the strip mall to just streamline the parking experience. And I think a valet could work since it is a more pricey upscale restaurant. I feel like their kind of clientele would appreciate the option to have a valet parking service. And yeah.
All right, so as you can see, the 404 Kitchen is located in a very busy part of downtown, lots of apartments nearby. So the apartments bring parking garages. It was pretty hard to get a spot, especially with it being a busy Saturday night. Atrocious was the word I used, but very, very tight with all the parking garages being there downtown. Downtown is always insane on the weekends. So we were actually forced to pay for our parking. And I just recommended to customers, whenever you're making those reservations, advise people before they come in where the best places to park and the, closest, whether it's paid or not, try and find the one that isn't $20 per hour, because they're coming to your restaurant to spend a lot of money. And They want the best experience overall. So I feel like that would just help customers, be able to find their way to a better parking situation.
Okay, so for the greetings at room 38, when we walked in, the host was standing, as you can see in the photo, at the back left part of it, to the in between the two TVs. She didn't notice that we had walked in right away, and it took about a minute and a half for us to be approached and then be seated at our table. On our way out, the staff all thanked us for coming in and hope to see us again soon. Super friendly, super nice. Um, but I do suggest that they set up a at least temporary host stand closer to the front door so that the host is aware of the people who are walking into the restaurant and make sure that they get sat at a properly manner and that they're not just waiting around twiddling their thumbs waiting to be approached by staff.
When we first walked into Chris McDee's, we were immediately greeted by the hostess at the host station. And we were total a party of 7, but we only had 3 of us there initially. And so we couldn't sit at our table yet since the whole party wasn't there. And assuming since COVID, they took out all of like their benches and waiting area. So the only place you can wait is at the bar. But since people do come there just to drink and treat it as a bar, there's not always like options for you to sit at the bar. So I would just propose enhancing the waiting area, bringing back those benches, and or allowing parties to sit at their table before that they're all there. I know lots of restaurants need the whole party there, but that can be inconvenient when you have a larger party. And I feel like Chris McDee's should be able to handle larger parties, especially this was a Friday night before a game day. So there's a lot of out of towners and tourists and people here for the game, and businesses should expect in Columbia to get more business. So I would just suggest that they train their hostesses and their front of house people to just be a little bit more efficient in getting people seated.
All right, so the greeting, actually, we had to wait for someone to come and get us for like a solid 2 minutes. And when they got there, they actually acted like they didn't want to be working. So they were rushing us to our table, kind of seemed impatient whenever we were sitting down. I mean, as soon as we sat down, they wanted our drink order. And then when ordering our drink, they like did a double take and asked us what it was, and then you had to explain. So that was kind of odd. Never had that experience before. The approach to customers that needs to be fixed, obviously, when we were greeted, there was no like, hey, how are you? There was no welcome. Wasn't a very solid greeting. And just be able to create a better personal connection with people at the door, so that kind of ignites the good experience. But like I said, we had to wait for someone to come get us for a while. Maybe they were just busy. Saturday night rush, dinner rush, as usual. But yeah, just put on a smile and fake it if you have to. That's what I would say.
Okay, so for the friendliness and the helpfulness of the staff at room 38, I found them to be extremely friendly, but I felt as if they weren't being proactive about what they were doing, having to ask the tables for water, having to ask the tables for silverware when we needed our food instead of having it already preset for us. And I also felt like the server lacked some of the knowledge when I asked about some of the whiskeys. She did not know anything really about that and kind of made it harder for me to make decisions about what I wanted to order. Um, this strategy for improving on this would be more training through the staff, especially the front of house staff who's going to have direct contact with customers, making sure that they've tasted and understand the things on the menu so that they're better able to sell things, and also pushing the staff to make themselves more productive on their own accord instead of waiting for tables to ask them for the things they need. They should be being proactive and doing that on their own.
So for the friendliness and helpfulness of the staff at Chris McDee's, I thought they were all very friendly. Initially, they were super accommodating. Once we had 5 members, still not our whole party, but 5 members, they put us at a table in the bar area. And we ordered drinks, and they were pulling up chairs and trying to accommodate us. And then they quickly kind of like shifted gears, and all of a sudden they had a table ready for us at the back. So we've just gotten settled at this table, and then they moved us to another table. So even though they were trying to be accommodating, it was just a little disorganized and a little disheveled. And then when we were traded to another server from the one we had at the other table, and this was a little bit confusing, and it was pretty slow to get our food in, and people at my party were drinking, and they were kind of ordering more and more glasses of alcohol because it was taking so long for the food to get ordered and the food to come. So I would just suggest, again, implementing staff training programs to be more efficient, especially with large parties, and just work on coordination and timeliness, like the timing of everything, just communication amongst the staff to be more efficient. And also, for an example of a restaurant who does this really well, I read some reviews for the Broadway Oyster Bar in St. Louis, which is a restaurant I've been to, and it's in a bigger city, so you'd expect that they have large parties experience. And here's just a review of people not having a reservation and that being a problem initially, but they showed up and they were super accommodating to them, and it was great. And so I would just suggest that Chris McDee's looks to restaurants like that as inspiration.
Friendliness and helpfulness at this 404 kitchen. Very unclear and delayed in almost every aspect. It's just got to be easier to understand what kind of restaurant you're in. I didn't feel like it was a good amount of staff members for a restaurant like that. There's lots of high quality food items. Like I said, that whiskey bar has some of the most expensive bottles in existence. And when we asked about that, they didn't know. So reservation issue. Our times were not met up with, I guess there was another couple in front of us, but just simplify tactics and make sure that everyone can clearly understand what is offered on your menu, and just coordinate better. Like, be able to accompany the guests that are willing to come in and buy what you have to offer. So.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Okay, so for the signage and wayfinding of room 38, I found if you looked it up on Google Maps to be super easy and up forth. I felt that they had a pretty good signage. They have a big room 38 lit up sign on the front of the restaurant with lights surrounding it. Draws a lot of attention to it, and there was a photo, but it didn't load. On the side of the restaurant, they also have their big logo on there right outside in front of the outdoor seating. It's very visible, very known. I think the only strategy I really have for them to improve on what they're doing is to use like movable triangle chalk sideboard boards on the front and on the back, just to help draw customers in and let them know what they're doing, maybe deals that they're going on with on the day.
So for signage and wayfinding at Chris McDee's, first of all, they have a big lit up sign outside, which is perfectly visible, like when you're right in front of the restaurant, but since it's in a big parking lot in a big strip mall, like when you're driving around the area, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle of all the other businesses. So maybe if they got a flashier sign or had more signs in the area, not just the one right in front of the building, I think that would be good. Inside the layout is pretty intuitive. You don't really need like actual signage to tell you where to go. And the only suggestion I would have is it is kind of dim in there. And if they were to add signs, I would add signs like this restaurant I'm showing here that has like a lit up restroom sign. I think that could be a good solution, but just like working on the internal lighting and the intuitive layout could improve things.
Pretty easy to find at the 404 kitchen. As you can see, it's very clear on the front of the building. Inside was pretty chaotic, very loud. Actually, there was people standing outside waiting, so it was pretty noticeable. Yeah, but I would say focus on the inside. Like, there's nothing wrong with the outside, as far as I'm concerned. Like, once you are there, you know where you're at. And the inside needs to be a little more welcoming, comfortable. It was extremely loud. Maybe some sound barriers would help them out a little bit. But definitely, definitely tight and needs to be, I don't know, maybe remodeled, open some space up a little bit.
So the atmosphere of room 38, when I went, it was 7 o'clock on a Saturday to stay there till about 8:30. We were sat at a booth near the bar. The booth was pretty comfy. It had leather seats. We had a candle in the middle of the table. Although the candle brought some light, it was very dark in there and it was kind of hard to read the menus. The music was really loud and it was like a house EDM music, which I thought was kind of weird for a dinner service. Had seemed more like a late night mood. They had Christmas themes in there when I went, so they had a bunch of ornaments, decorations, tinsel hung up. Um, the vibe in there was very loud. It seemed more like a bar than it was a restaurant. Um, that was kind of annoying when we were sitting at our table trying to talk to each other, and it just seemed like chaos. So I think the things that Room 38 needs to do to improve on this is they need to work on the music selection that they have and how loud that they're playing it. Because when you're playing loud EDM music, it distracts from the conversation. It interrupts the talking between people. It makes it hard to talk to the server as well. Also, the choice of music and understanding what time of night it is very important to the whole atmosphere of the way things are. The other big problem that I realized was, if you can see in the photo, they're sitting in the booth that I was sitting in. It's across from the TV, but when I was there, they had tinsel and everything hung up, so we could not see the TV and we could not watch the sports games that were on. I think that defeats the purpose of having the TV there. So I would definitely move those decorations.
The atmosphere at Chris McDee's is very cozy. They have a lot of artwork and they play jazz music, very welcoming, like aroma of all the cooking food and stuff. But again, the lighting is very dim. And so my only suggestion would to be like to maintain that cozy ambiance, but maybe work on the lighting a little bit so that it's easier to see menus and stuff. Cause like I know I have bad vision, but like going out to eat with my like older relatives and stuff, they always have to get their phone flashlights out to look at the menus, and they're always annoyed with that because they don't even know how to find the flashlight on their phones. So just working on that, I think, would cause less annoyances for customers.
Yeah, it was dark. It was dark in there, but very classic, like modern retro feel, where that was the most comforting part to me. But definitely need to think about evaluating the structure in there. Tight corners, not very open, kind of closed off. and that may make it seem loud. But it's very close together seating. They definitely pack everyone in there, and definitely need some better lighting. Like the best place that was lit up was the bar. Maybe focus on the whole restaurant instead of just one area.
So for the ease of ordering at room 38, when we were first approached by our waitress, she took our initial drink and appetizer order, which got put in at a timely manner. It was pretty good. The restaurant was pretty busy. As the time went on, I felt like she lost control of our table and was so consumed with the other tables that she had that it became harder to order entrees and to get more rounds of drinks as we were going throughout the night. I think to fix this issue, we should room 38 should hire servers with some more experience or help their servers to gain more experience on how to navigate tables, how to space them, time them, and know when to come back to the tables. And the other thing would be using POS systems to help them navigate when to go to their table, how long it's been since they've last checked in with their table, and yeah, just overall making things smoother and easier for them to be able to manage multiple tables at one time.
So, of ordering at Chris McDee's, it was pretty slow on that night. He came back and got our drink orders, but he wouldn't take our food orders. So I just think that maybe implementing technology like digital menus or ordering, or just working on their own technology for like the POS system and putting things in and just like getting them to the kitchen and whatever they can do to speed it up would be great.
Delayed getting to the table. It was drinks were also delayed. Like I said before, low amount of staff for a place of that stature. Possibly more direct, like making lists of drinks offered that everybody knows, or some type of device, or even like a customized, like give them a piece of paper they actually write on and like circle what they want, make it different, make it fun. But this was one of the worst parts of our experience at the 404.
So for the correctness of the orders and the service, we ran into a couple issues there. The initial order that we had for the appetizers, which were the pretzel bites, was correct and came out. Drinks came out well too, but when it came to order our entrees, my burger came with everything on it when I asked for no pickles, no onions, and same thing happened with my friend. We also had fries that came with it. The fries were cold, and the dips that we got were also pretty cold. I don't know if they had an issue with timing out when they should be dropping fries and the dips compared to how long it takes to cook a burger. That's my best guess on that. But trying to fix some of these problems would be having a head chef or an expo on the opposite side of the line to check the correctness and telling each cook when he needs everything dropped based on how long it takes the food to actually be cooked. And that way it would have a better quality, and there's a quality check before the food gets run out by the server or the food runner.
So for the correctness of the order and service at Chris McDee's, everything was really great. Their food is amazing. It always has been. And I always order the same thing when I go there, which is crab cakes with a side of garlic mashed potatoes. And they were great. They were perfect. And the rest of my table didn't have any complaints. But it still was just really slow, which was annoying and takes away from the exceptional food. So I would just suggest, streamlining kitchen operations and making sure the staff is coordinated in the food service.
So very high quality place, a lot of great dish options. The service was really bad. Didn't allow the employees to supply with the amazing things that sounded fantastic, but like my steak was not cooked the way it should have been, or how I requested it. And there was also part of my girlfriend's fish that was actually still cold. So that was an issue. Definitely need to figure out how the great cooks that are in the kitchen can deliver what they're promising on their menu.
So when it comes to the payment at room 38, it took the server a while for her to split up our bill because it was just me and my friends there. We didn't want to be on one tab like we would be if we were on a date. Um, that was a little frustrating, and the payment overall was pretty easy. She had a handheld device where she just handed it to us. I tapped on the top, and that was it. Auto gratuity was added onto the bill, which I think was uncommon for a restaurant and was strange considering we were at a three top. Normally that takes place at groups that are 6 to 8 or more. So my strategy on improving the payment method would be to only add gratuity when it's a big top table. This helps make the server interact with their tables more and make sure they're giving really quality service instead of knowing they already have the 20% and just letting things slide. I think using a screen when they finish where it says 15, 20 to 25% would be a good option and can honestly improve the customer even more compared to just automatically adding the 20% onto the bill. And then using seat numbers while using the system makes it a lot easier for the server to split up the bill a lot faster because they know exactly who ordered everything compared to everything just being just on one long bill and then trying to split everything up and just by memory. So that's what I would do to change it.
Okay, for the payment experience at Chris McDee's, so since we got traded from one server to another, they like closed us out and then closed us out again later, which was just kind of annoying. Like in restaurants I've worked at in the past, like I would have just traded that table to the next person so they can just close out all at once. Just because it was just like one drink and they could have easily just put that on to for the other server to close us out at the end with the entire meal. So I would just suggest implementing a more streamlined payment process to not have the interruptions during the meal where you're having to get out your credit card and pay and then do it again later. So that's it.
So it got worse, actually. The non-existing check charges were on our final bill, which made it actually an awkward situation where we had to actually request to take it off because we did not receive what was on the check. Got to pay more attention to detail. Can't get things mixed up at a place like this, especially when the items are that expensive and when you have to double check your bill for what you got. Made it very uncomfortable for us and seemed to, seem frustrating to the server as well for getting it incorrect.
So for the guest recovery for room 38, I think it's important to understand and recognize when things have gone wrong and they've delivered things wrong to the table. Like when we had our fries delivered cold, the dips were delivered cold, and the modifications on the burgers weren't right. I think the other thing that's important to do is, which I didn't really feel like happened, was as the server got busier and the kitchen got busier and the wait times took longer, the server kind of almost felt like she was hiding away from us instead of facing the problems directly on. So I think a couple strategies to fix these things would be when something does get messed up, notifying the managers so that they can go and talk to the tables and fix the issues. The managers should go over to the table, make eye contact, address the issue right away, and then work on finding a solution to this. Some of the solutions would be giving discounts based on a percentage of how messed up it was on certain items, taking items off of the bill, or just fixing it originally to what the correct order should have been. And I think it's important for the servers to make sure that they are being communicative with the table, especially when things are going wrong. When the ticket times get longer in the kitchen, it's important for them to notify their tables and not hide from them so that they can be more understanding and just know what is happening with their food and what's happening in the restaurant.
So For guest recovery at Chris McDee's, I just observed that there were some lapses in the service, and lots of delays. So I would just really suggest to be more proactive and, be checking on your table more and not waiting too long to come back and visit the table and being really on top of things, just for better customer service.
Yeah, I think that the 404 Kitchen does a good job overall whenever, like I said before, they've had these world-class options on their menu. It's a big attraction down here. That's how we heard about it. People talked about it, how great it was. Expecting a very tight shift. It was not the case. Food was not prepared correctly, and it took a lot of time just to get something like a glass of water. Yeah, I would not be willing to go back and try that one again. Probably have to venture out because there's plenty of different options. But yeah, definitely need to get everyone on the same page within the restaurant. Make sure that things are run accordingly and efficiently.
So overall, I mean, I had a pretty good time at room 38, but of the issues that I saw that I think needed to be addressed, I felt like there were some drunk people sitting at the bar across from our booth that were quite distracting, loud, obnoxious, and they seemed like they were overserved. I think the other thing that's really important for them is communicating with their tables and also making sure that food items are not coming out cold if they're supposed to be hot, coming out the right way. So some of the strategies to fix these things would be making sure they're not over-serving their patrons too much, because when people get drunk in a restaurant, especially a restaurant like that's a bar slash restaurant, the people who are there to just eat the food and enjoy their experience gets ruined sometimes by some drunk idiot that just wants to be loud and obnoxious. And I think it's important to use correct music tools to help distract from some of the noise, because there's obviously going to be some noise at the bar. And then making sure that the food that's supposed to be warm stays warm is going to be important by implementing that expo position where they're making sure they time everything out properly based on how long it takes to cook the food. And when the food is ready, if it's ready before some of the other items, using what I have on the bottom right, heat lamps to keep the food warm for the time being until it is ready to run.
So any other issues that I observed at Chris McDee's was mostly when we finished our meal, we wanted to stay and sit at the bar and have one more drink, and the owner straight up told us to leave. Which, like I said, change of ownership. And in the past, my uncle and my family were kind of regulars, and we would hang out there like that later into the night all the time. And this was only like at 9 p.m. It wasn't super late or anything. And it was just kind of frustrating, especially after we'd just spent quite a good amount of money on a meal and we weren't even allowed to stay and have one more drink. So I would just suggest like evaluating the impact of keeping the bar and the restaurant open later, in order to retain these regular customers and to keep them satisfied, and also to be like really transparent if they have to close the bar down early for some reason, just be really clear about that. And yeah.
So last thing, I feel like I covered most of the issues. But one thing that definitely needs to be changed is giving challenges that come with running such a high rated place. I mean, we were expecting a great experience, but the staff needs to be trained. And when you have to host that many people, you can't expect 6 servers to run the restaurant as efficiently as it should. I think that was their biggest problem. Obviously, there were things wrong with the food and ordering, and greeting. That was really uncalled for. But I do feel like the staff needs to completely change the way they think about their job. It seemed like really none of them wanted to do what they were doing. So that would be the one big issue outside everything else.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop the recording.
How do I stop it?
You know how to stop it?
No.
Did you try just hitting the record button again?